I don't know what's up with the timer.
It's off.
Yeah, it's stopped doing its thing.
It's messed up.
I don't know.
Okay, well, we are here now.
Want to introduce yourself?
I am going to introduce myself. I am Miriam, co-founder and COO of Keto Chow. Check us out at ketochow.xyz.
I'm Chris, also a co-founder, president, and the technical guy behind Keto Chow. If you're brand new to Keto Chow, we have a couple products that we created to make doing a keto diet easier. Main product is a meal replacement shake mix that you can customize to fit the macros that work best for you. We also have an electrolyte supplement that's awesome.
We do this live stream to keep you updated with all of our Keto Chow happenings, to help us be accountable, stay on track, and have you with us on our journey. So thanks for joining us. We are working on getting our guest on right now.
Yep. Well, no, the issue is I sent a calendar invite to make sure that Amy would be here, but it automatically added a Hangouts link.
Oh, okay.
And so she says it's asking to join.
Gotcha.
It's like, you know what? That's
not the right thing.
Yes. So let me get over here to the
Whoopsie.
chat. We've probably got people in here already. Hey, let's see. So Rachel says, hey, what's up, family? Heather says, hello. Heather Renee says, hi, bears. By the way, once we get on, I probably won't pay too much attention to the chat, just so you know. Let's see. Saskia says, happy Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Let's see. You either is or you ain't says hello from Tampa. Ricky says hi from South Florida. Mike says greetings. Linda says hello. Peggy says good evening, bears. Dennis, thank you for letting us know that Facebook is working. Says thank you for your show this morning. Blaine says hello from Atlanta, the best multi-million metro area in Georgia.
Hey,
okay.
There we go.
Hey.
I see Amy, right?
Hey, here
Hey,
I am.
there you are.
Hey.
Welcome,
Sorry
Amy.
for the technical difficulties. This is
Hey.
why I write for a living.
That's exactly right. So, how's it going? How's your Tuesday?
It's good. It's good. It's been a long day, even though I didn't do much. I feel like that's just what's going on lately, and I can't even blame it on the virus. I just feel like time gets away from me, and then before I know it, it's nighttime, and I accomplished nothing.
I feel like that too sometimes. So I hear you.
What have you done with your life?
Oh.
Well, I brushed my teeth.
Somebody's here from Silver Spring. I used to live in Silver Spring, Maryland, if
Nice.
that's where you're from. Mimi Dest. Yeah, I used to live in Silver Spring.
Awesome. Did you live in Oregon as well?
No.
Okay.
I visited. I have never lived there.
I visited Oregon too. My dad's from there. So, yeah, there you go. And Dr. Peter Ballerstedt lives in Oregon as well, right?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, he's out there. And there's a keto doctor, Deborah Gordon, who lives in Ashland, I think.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, for those of you who are joining us tonight that do not know Amy Berger.
You're in for a treat.
Okay, so we actually, I wasn't even there the first time we met Amy Berger. It was at the Low Carb Cruise.
Yes.
So you were with Holly, and you met her at the Low Carb Cruise.
And
Was that the first time?
I think it must have been. It's the first time I can remember you.
Huh.
Because not long after that, we were at KetoCon. This was 2018.
Yeah.
And you were walking around. I remember complimenting you on your just awesome outfit. And then we sat by you while we were watching, I think it was Maria Emmerich's presentation.
Oh, about oxidative priority.
And kind of hung out. And then, hey, we got you to come to Keto Salt Lake last year.
Because we're lucky.
Which is fantastic. Now, you are a veteran of the U.S. Air Force.
I am.
They paid for your schooling, right?
We did. I got a free master's degree at the Go GI Bill, you know?
Nice.
There you go. Now, your company, your thing is called Tuit Nutrition, and there's a good story behind that, right?
Oh, there's a story. I don't know if it's a good story.
I think it's a good story.
I think it's a good story.
Should I tell it quickly?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think it's on my website. There's a tab that says "Why to It." So there's a picture of what I'm about to describe. When I was a kid, so basically it came because when it was time for me to pick a business name, everything I was trying to pick and find a website for, all the domains were already taken. Like everything I would have wanted was taken. And then I remembered when I was little, my mother had this wooden coin. It was like the size of a silver dollar. If anyone watching is old enough to remember silver dollars, it was wood. And on one side in big letters, it said TUIT, to it. And the back of it said something like, now you have a round to it. No more excuses. Do the thing you've been putting off. Because what do we all say? Oh, I'll do that when I get around to it. Someday I'll get around to it. Now you have a round to it. And so I came at it like, when are you going to get serious about your health? When are you going to get serious about your diet? Well, someday you'll get to it. Now you have to it nutrition. And it's like, I actually don't like it, but it's too late now. I can't change it now.
Yeah, at least you didn't name your company Keto Chow.
Yeah, people would think it was dog food.
You know, it's memorable, right? People, it's like, what to it? Okay, there you go. And now you've got it. I mean, it could be worse.
Everyone thinks it has to do with like intuitive eating.
There you go.
Okay, that's a better explanation.
Sure.
Let's go with that.
Sure, that's what it is. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now I got to tell you a story. One of our daughters just went off to college, to university, and she texted me today and said,
"Yeah, she's been there like 3 days."
She's like, all of my roommates think that keto is stupid and dangerous. And I was like, okay, we were kind of expecting
I think her roommates are stupid and dangerous. No, just kidding.
And first off, I actually sent her a talk by Ben Bickman about the plagues of prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very good talk. And then she had some questions about Alzheimer's and whether I don't know why she was asking about Alzheimer's.
It was whatever her roommates were feeding her, she was asking you those questions.
Yeah. And so I started telling her about, type 3 diabetes and myelin sheaths and blood-brain barrier and the whole deal. And then she says, well, do you have any references that I can send to her? And I said, funny you should ask. And I sent her this YouTube video recording from Keto Salt Lake last year. So in case you're wondering why we had you give that talk, that's why.
So we could tell our daughter's roommates.
And I think at that conference, at that presentation, if I remember correctly, you even said, I give this same presentation all the time. But every time I do, it's mind-blowing for people. It's life-changing for people. And so that's why you keep on giving it.
Yeah, there's new people coming in all the time, and there's new, this stuff is like old news to us and probably to a lot of people watching, but to a lot of people out there, they've never heard this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's the same reason somebody asked, everyone knows I'm close with Dr. Westman, and he's very patient. He has a very calm demeanor, and sometimes a little too calm. But people ask him, how can you answer the same question over and over for 20 years without, like, you don't know that already? What's wrong? He said, because there's always new people finding this. This is like you just have to understand that not everybody is on Twitter 24/7 like we are, and on all the social media, like just absorbing this stuff all the time. So
yeah, I like to think of it that they're asking something that we're passionate about. How wonderful to be able to tell them the answer. I just think it's great. Yeah. So, people will ask us the same questions over and over again, and it's just like, hey, you're one of today's lucky 10,000. Let's talk about this. Mm-hmm. So you've got your To It Nutrition website, correct? So what is it that you do there? Tell us about Amy. If people don't know who you are, because we've met you a couple times, but
right. So I just want to say hi there. It looks like there's someone from North Carolina. I'm coming to you live from Durham right now.
There you go.
And I just moved here 2 years ago, so I'm a Yankee. This is the furthest south I ever thought I'd be living, but here I am. So yeah, am a career changer. I was not always a nutritionist. Like you said, I was in the military, and I mean, I only did a 4-year stint, but then I worked as a civilian. I worked for the Department of Defense for 6 or 7 years. I was an administrative assistant for an insurance company. I've done a lot of stuff. And I was in and out of a lot of jobs that I didn't find fulfilling and didn't like. And after having my own weight loss through low carb, like I came into it the way a lot of other people do. I was heavier, and I was heavier despite doing a lot of exercise, eating what I thought at the time was a healthy diet, a good diet. And my entry into this was the Atkins diet. I found the Atkins book, read it, and, did it. And here I am. That was almost 20. I mean, I've been at this a long time, probably about 20 years. Now, I'm not always super strict keto, but I'm always low carb. Like, my diet is always low carb. It's not always crazy, very, very strict keto. So when I say I've been doing this 20 years, I kind of want to be clear with people. And after losing the weight and just being fascinated by the science of it and taking it upon myself to start reading some of the scientific articles to the extent that I could understand them at the time, one day it occurred to me that, hey, like, nutritionist is a job. I could do that. I could make this my career and maybe find that a little more fulfilling and rewarding. And I could have just been a health coach or just a whatever, but being that I did have, access to the GI Bill to pay for school, and for me personally, the way I'm wired, I wanted to have some kind of letters after my name just so there was a reason people would take me seriously, which, we all know people that are brilliant that have no formal training and no one cares. But for my own personal level of comfort, I wanted to have something to back me up. So that's kind of why I went to get the formal training. And here we are. And so I do work with individual clients, but a lot of my income and my time is writing within the health and nutrition world. And my undergraduate degree is in creative writing. So
nice.
I actually consider myself a writer first and a nutritionist second. And I think I became known as a blogger first. And I just wrote a new blog post for the first time in ages, but I used to really churn out a lot of blogs.
Yeah. So when I was grabbing your website address nutrition.com, I noticed that you had the new blog post. So that's fantastic. So you're actually using your degree? Holy cow.
Both of my degrees, the writing and the nutrition. It's like, this is...
You are an outlier.
Yeah.
Now, you do a lot of videos on YouTube, and they're pretty short, and they're pretty to the point. I've noticed that you like to do single message topics, YouTube videos, topics.
Yeah.
Now, didn't you used to have even a series of videos called Keto Without the Crazy?
No, that's sort of my motto. That's my tagline.
Okay.
That's kind of, I say that all the time, but my videos are not usually short. I think a lot of
okay, short-ish.
Well, I'm trying to keep them shorter. They just, in order to do topics justice, you have to kind of explain, but some of them are short, some of them are long. But some people love they want the details, they want everything. And then, but I know that there are some people that they'll just bypass when they see an hour, 42 minutes, they won't even bother. They want something that's 12 minutes or 14 minutes. And that's not me. And my blog posts are just encyclopedia. Brevity is not my strong suit in videos or blogs, but that's okay. Somebody else has mastered the 10-minute soundbite. I can master the Keto 101 that you would pay $10,000 for in a university. You can get for free on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. Now I like that your explanations are very, I don't know, pedestrian isn't the word I'm looking for. They're very understandable to non-technical people.
Yeah.
I really like that a lot. And on Twitter, I've seen you posting a lot of stuff where you don't like to take a dogmatic approach. You like to, well, once again, we're getting back to keto without the crazy. Joe says you can't have keto without the crazy because he's the 2 crazy ketos. But
You know, I had a friend just introduce me to the 2 Crazy Keto. She loves your videos. She loves the recipes. She's like, you have to watch them. I've just seen your videos for the first time like last week.
oh, nice.
So I know who you are now, the 2 Crazy Keto.
Yeah. So anyway, for those of you who haven't ever seen, let's see. I think I can pull this off.
I mean, the way I approach videos and my blog is I try to explain things the way I would want someone to explain them to me if I didn't know anything about this. So like, and I genuinely like it. Like, I'm such a nerd. I enjoy taking something that's really scientific and technical and putting it into plain English. Take away all the scientific gobbledygook. What does this actually mean for me, and how do I apply it in my life?
Nice. Well, so it looks like you've got your 14 and tell if keto is working for you besides weight
That's
loss.
a new post, yeah.
Nice.
There's the book on the right.
Oh,
You
yes,
can
the
see
Alzheimer's
the
Alzheimer.
Alzheimer's antidote.
And don't forget the Stall Slayer.
Yes, and that's the one I'm working on reading right now. That's
Oh,
on my
great,
tab.
great, thanks.
So, and you speaking at a bunch of virtual conferences. Which ones are you? Oh, you spoke of San Diego, right?
Yeah, that's over already, but Maria Emmerich has kind of an ongoing, her keto adapted virtual summit, and I'm not sure what her process is. We already recorded my talk. I think she's releasing one every week because you can see it's like September through November, so she might be doing maybe one a week, or I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. Now, and I guess I should pop that back up on the screen. One thing that you started doing really recently is you started, let's see, I'm trying to remember what one of the names of you started writing articles for us. And it's fantastic.
Agreed.
I can't remember the article. There's one posted today.
Berger. Let's see if I can find one really quick.
Yeah, Maria, if you're looking for my Stall Slayer book, stallslayer.com, or you can find it on Amazon. It's called The Stall Slayer, and it's about breaking fat loss stalls on keto.
Oh, nice. So here's one of the posts. Hey, can keto make you tired? And let's see. So far we have several posts.
There was the one about dairy.
And then one about the brain.
And one thing that's really nice is crazy annotations.
It's so awesome. Great. Because then you can really get into the details and the nitty gritty and where the sources come from. So.
Which is precisely what we were looking for. This is something that Miriam and I we had been poking around saying, hey, we need to get more content on our blog. We need to get more stuff on our website. And then like right then you were like, hey, you guys need any writing? We're like, what?
We sure do.
It was perfect timing because but do you hear a dog bark? I live in an apartment and
it's okay.
Yeah, but it's not that bad.
Okay. If it gets bad, let me know because I have my window open for the first time in like 3 months in North Carolina. It's not blazing hot. So it's just nice to have the window open, but I hate the sound of dogs barking. So let me know if it's bad. Okay. It was perfect timing. I had been writing for a particular company for about 5 or 6 years, and it had just run its course. I was kind of like, I'm not into this anymore. It's not really, there's no opportunity for advancement. I don't, it's just not for me anymore. And I was trying to find other who else could I write for and who could I write for writing things I would actually want to write. And, you guys, I think it kind of explained that you were looking for exactly the kind of writing I like to do. You wanted longer kind of scientific. Like, where do I sign?
Do we even have anybody sign anything? I don't think we did. I think it was just, we were just so excited. We're like, yay.
It was like an internet handshake, like an internet.
That's right. High five. Now, okay, so let's go back a bit to the Stall Slayer. Tell us what that book is about. Obviously about slaying stalls. God, I can speak.
So That's probably the number one reason that people write to me for help is why am I not losing weight? Or, I lost 10 pounds and then it stopped, or I didn't ever lose any weight. What's wrong with me? And there's some very sort of not low level, but like basic things that get in people's way. And once you point it out, oh, okay. So, and then there's some more advanced things that people don't know that might be having an effect. So instead of writing the same email answer every time somebody asks me, they're like, here, buy this book. I put all the information in one place. Mm-hmm. And I would also say it's primarily about breaking fat loss stalls, but it's also, there's a lot of myth busting in there. There's like, too much protein is not really a thing unless you have epilepsy, or like you don't have to worry about that. Yeah. You don't have to hit your fat macro, like all of this. So it's also a reminder about why keto works, how it works, and what you can forget about completely. So it's I like it. And I mean, I self-published, so I was able to say things the way I wanted to say them. It didn't have to be like all formal. And so, and it's a skinny little book. It's a quick read. It's available in paperback, or they have it for Kindle, or there's a PDF if you just want to download a PDF from stallslayer.com.
Oh, wow. And Mike just ordered it. There you go. Good job, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you.
So now one other thing that just occurred to me, and you were talking about the whole protein thing and hitting the macros and stuff like that. I don't know how much you're aware of Reddit. There's a subreddit on, there's a keto subreddit. That's actually where I started my entire keto journey. There's an auto moderator when someone asks questions about macros. The auto moderator automatically puts a reply in there. And one of the things that it puts in there is a link to one of your articles about hitting macros and how you don't need to worry about gluconeogenesis and you don't need to worry about all this stuff. And it's every time I see that, I just go, yay.
That's so great.
I don't use Reddit. I know what it is. I don't there's only so much social media I can keep up with.
That's the anti-social media.
Yeah.
So I can't be on all the platforms all the time. So some of them I just have to not engage with, but that's so great to know. And I hope it's helpful for people, but I'll have to look, because I think I might have done a post. I know I did a video on macros, but I'll have to see. Maybe I did a post and it would have been a while ago, but that's cool. That's good to know.
Yeah. And that's, and of course, Ben Bickman kind of put that whole argument to rest back in Breckenridge. Now, here's an interesting thing. So last time we were at a conference where you were speaking, you were talking about personal fat threshold. And it was really eye-opening for me when you were giving that talk. It was actually up in Toronto, and I had seen the presentation before. I hadn't conceptualized it. I hadn't internalized it. It didn't click. But that particular time, it was clicking. It was mind-blowing to me. And did you catch any of the Proper Human Diet Summit that happened this last week?
I didn't.
Okay. So Dr. Ben Bickman basically took what you talked about on the personal fat threshold and scientificized it. Like everything you said was backed up with the processes, the mitochondria, what's happening here, what's the name of the fat cells that are doing that. It's really interesting. Can you tell people a little bit about personal fat threshold? Because I want people to have their mind blown.
The suitcase.
Yeah, sure. Is there a way for me to post can I get in the chat and post a link? Because I wrote a blog post about it too.
I think that you can. There is a private chat that
if you put it in there, then we can grab it.
Yeah, I can kick it over. You should have just seen this thing pop up.
Oh yeah. Okay. So let me try to find it on my, it's a very long blog post, but I think it really explains everything.
Mike says most normal people don't use Reddit.
Private chat. Okay, so I just sent the link through the private chat.
Got it.
So yeah, the personal fat threshold concept really fascinates me, and also it explains a lot of things that seem weird or seem strange. Because, okay, the obesity and type 2 diabetes they go hand in hand so often that there's this new phrase, diabesity, right?
Okay.
But not everybody with type 2 diabetes is overweight. We all know plenty of sort of normal weight people that have diabetes. And then we also know people that are very, very large people who do not have diabetes.
Yeah.
Right? They don't even have metabolic syndrome. Like, if you look at their blood work, they're totally healthy, but they're 400 pounds. The personal fat threshold explains all of this. The personal fat threshold basically says that as long as, when you are eating, whatever you're eating, be it fat, carbs, protein, anything, that energy, some of it's burned, some of it is stored. And we store it in what we call subcutaneous fat. That's a fancy word for under the skin, subcutaneous. It's the fat we love to hit, the fat on the hips, the thighs, the old lady batwing arms, the double chin. This is butt. We don't like the way it looks, but that's where fat is, I wouldn't say supposed to be stored, but it's safe for the body to store fat there. That's where, fat is supposed to be. Once you hit what we call your personal fat threshold, your own individual maximum storage capacity of this fat, your body has to store fat someplace else. Places it's not supposed to be stored, like in and around your visceral organs. That's why it's called visceral fat. In and around your liver, in and around your pancreas, your blood sugar regulating organs. Fat is not supposed to be building up in your liver. This is non-alcoholic fatty liver. Fat is not supposed to be in your pancreas. You've probably never heard of fatty pancreas, but it's a thing, just like fatty liver. And when you have fat building up in these places, really, really gnarly stuff starts to happen.
Gnarly, yeah.
I declare, but this is a family show. We're going to keep it G-rated here. Bad stuff happens. And it's like, we don't like the way, so Doc, if you guys, most of you probably know who Ted Naiman is. Ted Naiman likes to say, obesity is the price you pay for not becoming diabetic. Because if you can become larger and larger and larger, if the fat is stored away from those organs, you might be very heavy, but metabolically speaking, you're healthy. So this is why China and India, two nations not known for their obesity epidemics, are the leading raging increases in type 2 diabetes. They're the diabetes capitals of the world. They get diabetes at much, much lower weights when they're much, much thinner, because they just genetically, constitutionally don't have a lot of storage capacity, with the exception of like sumo wrestlers that use very deliberate methods to fatten themselves. You never see a 300-pound Chinese person. You just don't see it. What you will see is a 140-pound Chinese person that has raging type 2 diabetes, because they just don't have the capacity to become morbidly obese. More and more of that fat builds up in those organs at a lower weight. And it's just, as somebody myself who used to be heavier, political correctness, you can no longer make jokes or poke fun of religion, gender, race, sexual orientation, what have you. But it's open season on fat people all the time. It's always cool to crack a fat joke, and your mama's so fat, These things, I'm not saying it's cool, but in the climate, like, no one bats an eye when people make fun of or make jokes of heavy people. And there's so much stigma and so much bias against heavy people, when the fact is all of these metabolic problems, be it type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, PCOS, all this stuff, it happens in people who are not overweight. And it's explained by the personal fat threshold, because I'm so annoyed at the bias against heavy people. And because we look at somebody and we think, just by looking at their size, we can know what they eat, how much they eat, whether they exercise, how much. And no, we can't. We don't know anything.
It's a moral failing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, you're fat. It's a character flaw. You're lazy. You're undisciplined. Never mind the thin people that eat garbage and never exercise.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's the whole TOFI, the thin on the outside, fat on the inside. That's kind of that personal fat threshold being reached really early on, right?
Sorry, what?
The people who are fat on the inside, thin on the outside, the thin on the outside. Oh, I said it backwards.
Right.
Thin
Yeah. So that's called TOFI, thin outside,
Mm-hmm.
fat inside. They also call it normal weight obesity. That's I've seen that in the normal weight obesity or metabolically healthy obesity, which is the people that are obese that are healthy on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And that's.
Now, I don't remember if it was during Ben Bickman's talk or during the question and answer, but they were talking about people's tongues having fat stored in their tongues, which is why they would develop sleep apnea. And one of the first things that the fat goes away is their tongue. I had never heard
heard of that before
but
either.
Apparently it's a thing.
Huh,
I've not heard that either, but that's fascinating. But the thing is, I know sleep apnea, the stereotypical person with sleep apnea is heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I knew a guy in the Air Force who was fit and thin, and he had sleep apnea. So I never looked at his tongue. Maybe he had a fatty tongue. that is fascinating. I never heard that before.
Now, day 2 keto, Melanie Goins. This is actually something that you covered in the personal fat threshold. Please forgive me. What is insulin resistance? Now, I've heard you talk about insulin resistance a lot and what that term means.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a bit?
I hate the phrase insulin resistance because you ask 10 people for a definition and you get 10 different answers.
Did you see me poke her? She's going for it. Go for it.
Insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance, insulin.
Yeah. What is it?
One?
Nobody can define these things. I prefer to use the phrase hyperinsulinemia because when you break that word down, it tells you exactly what it means. Hyper means high or too much. Insulin, emia, in the blood. Hyperinsulinemia means your insulin level in your blood is too high. And when we say chronic hyperinsulinemia, then the insulin in your blood is too high chronically all the time. Mm-hmm. And so insulin resistance, the basic, overly simplified definition is that your cells are no longer responding to insulin. So in order to force them to respond, your pancreas has to pump out more and more insulin, and that's why the insulin is so high.
Now, in your talk, I've heard you talk about luggage. Can you tell people that metaphor?
So yeah, and I stole it from Jason Fung, by the way.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
You leveraged it.
When I was in college, one of my professors said, "Good writers borrow, great writers steal."
Yeah.
So it's not plagiarism, it's just borrowing. If you have a suitcase, let's say you're like going on vacation and you're packing your suitcase, the suitcase is on the bed, you're putting clothes in, at some point, the suitcase kind of gets full. And then you can like barely close it, right? But you want to take that bathing suit. What if you go to that fancy party, you want to have the dress? So you're shoving more and more stuff in. Eventually, like now you're to the point where you got to sit on the suitcase to close the buckles and you got to shove it down. But the suitcase isn't broken. It's just full. The buckles, the locks on the suitcase are not malfunctioning. It just can't close because you put too much stuff in it. And so the suitcase isn't resistant to closing. It's full. So your cells are not resistant to insulin. They're full. Insulin. So we often think of insulin as a blood sugar hormone because it helps lower the blood sugar, but that is one of like 800 other things that insulin does. Insulin does help glucose get into certain kinds of cells. Insulin helps fat get into cells. So if your cells are full, remember we're talking about storing fat, it's not that they're not resisting taking more glucose in. They're full. The suitcase, you can't put any more stuff in. And the thing is, the real reason why I dislike the phrase resistance is because and I just read a paper about this like this week, when they talk about insulin resistance, they're talking about blood sugar usually, right? Your blood sugar is high because your cells are resisting the action of insulin, which would otherwise help the glucose get in. But insulin, in people that have high insulin or insulin resistance, all the other actions of insulin are totally preserved. Like, so what goes along with chronically high insulin or insulin resistance? High blood pressure, gout, skin tags, erectile dysfunction. There's a lot of men that have no idea that comes from chronically high insulin. But if you were resistant to insulin, then it would be as if you were like you're resisting it. You're not going to do what it's telling your cells to do. So if you were resistant to insulin, you would not have high blood pressure. You would not have the gout. You'd be losing weight because instead insulin wouldn't be keeping fat in your cells. You would be ignoring insulin, and you are not resistant to insulin at all. The cells are full.
So how do you fix that? Well, and before we go on, so once the cells are full, what does your body do?
Well, so once the cells in the subcutaneous are full, then it starts putting it in your muscle. That's the intramuscular fat. And I like to joke, you know how when you're looking for a well-marbled steak because that's the fat and its flavor? Yeah. Well, now we have marbled people. Yeah. We have like fat, and you are supposed to have a little bit of fat interspersed with muscle tissue, but it's done in a certain way when you have too much and it gets stored in the muscles in a different area. Then it goes, there's no place else for it to go. It's got to go in the liver. It's got to go into the pancreas. It's the last place your body wants to put fat, but there's nowhere else for it to go.
So to go back to your luggage analogy, the luggage is full. So we've got pockets in our coat. We've got
handbag,
shoving stuff behind our ear. Mm-hmm. We've got under our hat.
Right. Now you're just putting it anywhere, any old place it can go. And it's a mess, right? There's stuff spilling out all over. That is when you become pre-diabetic or diabetic, because now the energy's got nowhere to go. So now there's nowhere for it to go. It has to stay in your bloodstream because there's nowhere. It can't go anywhere. Now all the glucose stays in your bloodstream. Now all the fat, the triglycerides, stay in your bloodstream. But the thing to know is that the blood sugar, including your fasting glucose and your A1C, by the time those start to rise, those are rising because this is all full, right? Whether you're obese or not, you could be one of these thin, normal weight obese people. That's a late player to this game. By the time your blood sugar is high, your insulin has probably been high for years. And the only reason nobody knows is because hardly any doctors outside the keto world ever bother looking at insulin. So I've read papers that say sometimes the high insulin can start as much as 20 years before the actual diabetes develops.
My mom actually just got blood work done. No insulin assay on that. None at all.
They don't. It's not a standard test. It would be a game changer if fasting insulin was done routinely like fasting glucose is. It would just be a game, because there are so many, like I said, with the erectile dysfunction, even with PCOS, all these other health conditions that people don't know why they have them. Mm-hmm. Because if you would look at insulin, that's why. I hate, the word idiopathic, because it means we don't know what the cause is. Uh-huh. I like to call it idiopathic. It's not idiopathic. Essential hypertension, it's just there. We don't know why. Yeah. Test insulin and you will immediately know why.
Now,
here's the thing. The crazy part is I'm not a doctor. I'm just some person. Like, how did I find any of this? Even when I did my Alzheimer's book came out of my graduate thesis. How did I find all the type 3 diabetes, diabetes of the brain? How did I find that as a student? And when you go on the Alzheimer's Association website with the world's leading PhD researchers on this, there's not one word about that.
Well, it's because it's all about the red herring.
Yeah, it's the amyloid, it's this, it's that, it's your genetics, it's, you know, you didn't do enough crossword puzzle. Like, I mean, it's how are there lay people doing this as a hobby, learning about this stuff as a hobby on social media, and they know more than their doctors do? It's terrifying.
Well, it's because they're passionate about it, right?
Yeah, but you would hope that the doctors would be passionate about it too.
Yeah,
some of them are. I mean, like, we don't bash, but
yeah. Well, so now just to explain to people, when we're talking about the luggage is full, if you give someone, say, bariatric surgery, or they fast for a little bit, or they go on a ketogenic diet, all they have to do is empty out some of the luggage, and all of a sudden, all that blood sugar can go into the luggage, and it's fine. Your A1C is going to drop. I think it was Dr. Fung likes to say that bariatric surgery is just enforced fasting.
Yeah, it is.
And you can achieve the same stuff by just fasting. And you don't even have to fast for a lot. You just need to get that just down enough to empty the suitcase so that your blood sugar can come under control. And then all of a sudden,
you empty the handbag first.
Yeah, empty the handbag first.
You empty the handbag
well, yeah, so this,
and then the suitcase.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I said last in, because it's the last place your body wants to have to put fat is in your liver and in your pancreas. So it's the first place it's going to come out of. You can reverse fatty liver in days on a ketogenic diet or bariatric surgery or fasting. Just give it the chance to come out. And it's like, I always joke, it's like the Marine Corps, right? First in, last out. Except it's the opposite, last in, first out. And this is why you can reverse diabetes and reverse fatty liver even when somebody still has 200 or 300 pounds to lose. Mm-hmm. That's the most amazing thing. The blood sugar can correct really quickly. Triglycerides can correct really quickly. You might still technically have morbid obesity. This is how we know the obesity is not what is causing the diabetes, because you can reverse the diabetes while you're still obese. Yeah. And again, it's the moral thing, like, oh, you got diabetes because you're fat, and you have fatty liver because you're fat and you're lazy. No, the weight gain is another symptom of this whole metabolic thing, and I want to say it's funny. It's not funny. It's the most instructive part of this whole thing, is that you can correct all of that metabolic stuff before you even lost any weight. They know the bariatric surgery patients, you have to stop their diabetes medication like the day they have surgery, because it's already starting to get better. Dr. Westman wrote a paper where, his patients do very, very strict keto. In some of the patients that are on insulin for type 2, he has to stop their insulin on the first day of the diet. These people haven't lost 100 pounds on the first day, and yet they're already off their insulin. Wow. So it's just, it's nuts. And I don't know if I should try to answer some of the questions here. There was a
really good one from InHawk. And now this is something you addressed in your talk in Toronto. Well, and you first off said that for those of you who are overweight on a ketogenic diet, the fat that you have stored isn't from the sugar that you ate. It's from the fat that you ate while you were eating the sugar. I kind of want you to get into that. But first, InHawk said, okay, if this is so simple and just luggage full, there it goes, pop up. Why doesn't a high carb plant-based diet work better than keto? I'm asking because everyone and my doctor is pushing this on me.
So it does work. So it depends on what that vegan diet is made of.
Yeah.
It depends. It all really depends on what you eat. Keto is not the only way to reverse diabetes. Fasting is not the only way to reverse diabetes. I think keto is the most delicious way. It's the most sustainable way. It's the way that you can eat probably the most food and the most enjoyable food and the most nutrient rich food and still reverse all this stuff. It's not the only way though.
Yeah. Well, no, I think you even said that I think it was you, but it could have been someone else, that you can lose weight on a high carb, basically zero fat diet. It's just really, really hard. And a lot of times people just aren't going low enough on the fat.
Yeah, so you have to do low fat.
Yeah, like essentially none.
It'll suck, but it'll work. But so I think here's kind of the way I explained it, because I'm guilty of this myself. Said, well, I tried a low fat diet and it didn't work. When we talk about keto, you can't dabble in keto. You have to do it or not do it. Like if you're going to eat a lot of fat, you can't eat a moderate amount of carbs. You have to go really low carb in order for that to work. Yeah. Otherwise, you're in that sort of metabolic kiss of death gray zone. You can't be low-ish carb, high fat. You have to be low, very low carb, higher fat. Yeah. And I think the mistake some of us made, myself included, was we thought we were on a low fat, but back in the low fat days, we thought we were doing low because we were doing less fat than we were eating before, but we were high carb. You know, like me, I had a bagel. I mean, from New York City, I had a bagel every morning with I can't believe it's not butter light, you know? Yeah. So which is not fat free. Like, so I'm having lots and lots of carbs with less fat than I was eating before, but not low enough for me to like, because here, if you're eating carbs and fat, you burn the carbs. I mean, this is oversimplified, but you burn the carbs first. So if you're burning carbs, but you're also eating fat, you have to store the fat because you're burning the carbs. You're going to store the fat. So if you're going to go on a very low fat diet and you're burning carbs, okay, you're not going to gain fat, or you can lose fat because you're burning the carbs, but you're eating so little fat that there's nothing to be stored. There's nothing to be stored. I think so that works. It works, but I think you'll be cranky and hungry and miserable and possibly wind up with nutrient deficiencies. But for the purpose of weight loss, it'll work.
Yeah. It will work, but it'll be a cursed half-life. Yeah. Like you drank the blood of a unicorn. Wait,
and
no,
then,
that's Harry Potter.
How many people do we know? Then you have the rebound because you can only white knuckle that for so long before, like, I'm done with this. Give me the peanut butter pie, you know? Yeah. And by that time, because you were probably eating low calorie too, maybe even without trying. You probably weren't eating a whole lot of protein unless you were doing nothing but skinless chicken and tuna because protein tends to come with fat. So you've lost all this muscle. Now your metabolic rate is lower. So now you're just naturally set to a lower energy burning. Now you go back to eating normally because you couldn't handle it anymore. Now that's why everyone gains weight back. Mm-hmm. Look what happened with Loser. I mean, they did newspaper articles about this. Every single one of them gained the weight back and more. I mean, they didn't all gain more, but most of them gained most of it back.
Now, if you're on a high carb diet with almost no fat, that will out of necessity, your insulin levels will be really high.
No. So
really?
No, it depends. There are some people who are, I guess, better suited to a high carb diet.
Okay.
And I think the leaner you are, the less insulin you need to store because so if you're operating with your suitcase half empty most of the time, okay, then when clothing comes in, it can just come in. It doesn't need to be forced in. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I think this is why we all know people that eat a lot of carbs that don't have any metabolic problems, right? So two people can eat the exact same food in the exact same amount, and one person's insulin does this, and the other person's insulin does this. for whatever reason, it could be genetics, it could be their muscle mass, it could I think lots of things influence that, but that's the difference. We all, and I think a lot of it has to do with our own dietary history and where we came from. But that's the real difference, that you can eat the exact same food as somebody else and your blood sugar and insulin could do very different things.
Yeah. We're all special little butterflies.
Yeah, snowflakes.
Yeah, snowflakes. There you go. Mimi wants to know, can you eat a moderate fat, moderate protein, and moderate carb with exogenous ketones and lose weight?
If you're trying to lose weight, I would ditch exogenous ketones altogether. I don't really see the point in that.
Mm-hmm.
You can eat moderate if it's, I hate to use the C word, but if it's low enough in calories, you can lose weight eating anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're just not taking in enough energy to run your body, you'll lose weight. So I hate to say that, but it's kind of true.
And exogenous ketones are an energy substrate.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So if you're bringing in energy, and that's one thing, exogenous ketones do have their place. And I'd like you to touch on Alzheimer's, because that's kind of how you all started in all this. Peter Ballerstedt is here. Holy cow.
Yay,
hi, Peter.
Hey, Peter, I hope you're safe. I hope you are, because our friend Peter, the sod father, he lives in Oregon. Please, I hope you're doing okay.
Ruminati. Here we go.
Flagship members right here.
That's right. So exogenous ketones do have their place, especially if you're treating a neurological condition. To lose weight, they don't do much of anything, especially since they aren't in conjunction with acetoacetate and all the other signaling molecules that typically go along with it. But can you tell us about Alzheimer's and the stuff that you know about it?
Real quick, just with regard to the exogenous ketones,
yes.
They are energy. It's a fuel. I mean, not that if you take exogenous ketones, it's not like, 8,000 calories worth of energy, but it's energy, and you've just taken in that energy. Why is your body going to break down fat to make ketones? You just gave it some ketones from the outside. But I don't like to use exogenous ketones unless very specific circumstances. But I've heard Adam Nally, who's, I'm sure many of you know, he's kind of a keto doctor. He uses it for weight loss sometimes for people. I think if somebody finds that exogenous ketones help control appetite and craving, because some people report that, if that is the case for somebody and it helps you stay on a ketogenic diet, or it helps just regulate your appetite, I could see that being a role for them. But generally speaking, I don't think they're a weight loss tool. So Alzheimer's, yeah, if anyone is puzzled as to why on earth a keto nutritionist would know anything about Alzheimer's, we mentioned earlier, they call it type 3 diabetes or diabetes of the brain. And the nutshell version is the main problem in the brain of somebody with Alzheimer's is that the neurons are not metabolizing glucose properly. They're not converting glucose into energy. So these brain cells are basically starving to death. It's an energy shortage in the brain. And I just did the talk I did for Low Carb USA and for Maria Emmerich's thing is, my book came out 3 years ago. In the time since, guess what? The same thing is true of Parkinson's disease. Oh. Also very similar overlap with multiple sclerosis. All of these neurodegenerative things have a lot of that in common. This just energy shortage, and it is specific to glucose. And that's the rationale for using exogenous ketones in one of these situations. If for whatever reason, this person's body is not, or their central nervous system is not converting glucose into energy, can we provide an alternative fuel? Can we give them something else? Oh, let's try ketones. And they've shown in Alzheimer's for sure that, and not just in mice and rats, but in actual humans with this disease, when you give them exogenous ketones or even MCT oil, they have better cognitive function.
Or even coconut oil,
yes,
which has MCTs in it.
Yeah.
And
I see people saying, wow, interesting. It's please know it's not a slam dunk. It doesn't cure Alzheimer's by any means. It's a way to at least close that energy gap and help that person maybe have improved cognition, help their caregivers have a better quality of life. Yeah.
Okay. And this is something that, well, you've been going on and on, like you said, 3 years, right? Someone wants to know, do statins worsen Alzheimer's?
How controversial should I be? So if you literally, in my Alzheimer's talk, I quote directly from the US FDA's website where they say that memory loss and cognitive problems and forgetfulness are well-known side effects of statins. So in my opinion, as not a doctor, but a nutritionist, I do think they increase risk. Do they? I can't say that they cause it. I certainly think they increase risk. And like I said, the US FDA absolutely recognizes that cognitive problems and memory issues are potential side effects of statins. Because look, 25% of all the cholesterol in your body is up here in your brain. Your brain is just this jelly sack of fat and cholesterol. So if you are taking a drug that literally inhibits the production of the very thing your brain is built out of, maybe you might have some problems with your brain.
Yeah, I don't think we would be successful in doing a randomized controlled trial. And then, as Peter Ballerstedt talks about in a lot of his talks, having them, with when you do rat trials, when you're done with it, you get to euthanize the rat, and then you get to do a biopsy. That doesn't work with humans.
Weird.
Knowing for certain that statins would cause problems, I don't know if there's any way that we could know for certain. But it is like sitting in the corner pointing its finger and wiggling its eyebrows, isn't it?
I mean, the doctors I know who try to help people with mild cognitive impairment or Alzheimer's generally will take them off the statin.
Okay.
Because
Peter had a good question.
We're not, like, especially even the use of statins for cardiovascular stuff is so controversial anyway, at least within the keto world. Let's say you are someone who has you have Alzheimer's disease for sure. You may or may not develop cardiovascular disease. You're on a statin as a potential preventive because your cholesterol is high. What are we worried about right now? The potential for cardiovascular disease or the fact that your brain is dying right here, right now already?
Yeah.
It's a little nuts. I mean, it's just fascinating that I don't know what else to say about it. It's I would not ever use a statin, but that's not medical advice for anyone else. That's just my own personal opinion. And I don't have to have an opinion on whether they cause side effects. The FDA says they do. Period. Yeah. I mean, with the brain.
Peter Ballerstedt had a really good question about is cholesterol able to cross the blood-brain barrier?
That's a good question. I think, and I should know the answer, cholesterol, I believe, is synthesized I know cholesterol is synthesized in the brain. Whether additional cholesterol is transported from the body, I'm not sure. Okay. But this is why there's two kinds of statins. There's like water soluble and lipid soluble, and the lipid soluble statins do cross the blood-brain barrier, which those are the ones that cause the cognitive problems. Cholesterol has to cross the blood-brain barrier because I know lipoproteins do. Yeah. I think lipoproteins do, and they carry cholesterol, right?
Yeah, yep. That's how they get around.
Yeah, even if cholesterol doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, the lipophilic statins do.
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody was asking about my weight loss story. So I'm maintaining about a 38-pound weight loss. I never had like morbid obesity, but I'm 5'2", so 38 pounds makes a big difference. I'm a little short person.
You're just a little pocket rocket.
Yeah. Somebody also asked about calcium in the exogenous ketones. There's a reason why the beta hydroxybutyrate salts always come with calcium and sodium, and they come with a lot of sodium. I think it just has to do with the molecular structure and how it can be delivered to the body. I'm not really sure. Because they said, is the calcium a concern? I don't like for people to supplement with a lot of calcium, but if you have a medical need that exogenous ketones would be good for, it's probably a worthwhile trade-off to get the ketones and not worry about the calcium. But there's very few situations where exogenous ketones are needed, I think.
Yeah. I've heard that when people have like a traumatic brain injury, if you give them exogenous ketones, it can significantly improve their outcome.
Oh, I don't doubt that for a second.
And like, I think it was Willie Villarreal. Anyway, we went to, it was in Kansas City. He was talking about,
he's a sports
doctor. He helps kids with
sports injuries.
Mm-hmm. And when kids get a concussion on the football field, they absolutely give them exogenous ketones.
Nice.
And I'm like, wow, that's
one of the few things that I would recommend it for.
Yeah. So, okay, well, we don't want to keep you. It's super late where you are. It's like 10:30. So we're so appreciative of the time that you've given us tonight. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or say? We don't want to keep you too long.
Well, I have a new book coming out later this year. It's due out in December, but that's subject to change because you never know with publishers and Amazon and whatever. Yeah. It's called End Your Carb Confusion. It's available for pre-order on Amazon, and it's co-written with Dr. Westman. So,
hey, you know him.
He's just, some guy that also lives in Durham here, but he and I have the same mindset of keeping it simple and taking away all the unnecessary complication. This is the book that is written without there's no fancy scientific words in here, or if they are, we break them down really simply. And it's, this is the book that he and I would want if we were new to this. That's all I can say.
Okay. So I'm on your website. How can I find
that?
I actually don't have it on there yet, but you can, if you go to Amazon. I don't even have it on my own website yet. I'm asleep at the wheel.
See. Amazon, Amy Berger, if I can spell it right.
Let's see if we find it. It comes up under my name, but it's End Your Carb Confusion.
There it is.
There it is on the right.
Nice.
$29.95.
Okay.
That's so great.
And there's you. Look at you.
That's the old picture, yeah.
In your cool flowery shirt.
Nice.
I still own that.
Yeah. That's the weird thing about getting old. Like, clothes actually wear out. It's so weird.
Well, they wear out, but when I was a kid, my mother would say to people, "I have underwear older than you," and I'm kind of to the point where I can say that to little kids.
Are any of your books available as audiobooks?
No, but I've had that request. I could do the Stall Slayer really easily, but I would have to find out how. Because it's a small book. I could narrate it myself. I've had that request for my Alzheimer's book, but my publisher said if I do it, I have to narrate it, which I'm fine with. I would enjoy doing that. But we have some graphs and charts that would have to either be translated into spoken word, or I would have to consult the PDF that came with your audio download or whatever. But,
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Peter's making fun of your the picture in front of the vegetables.
But you know what? I'm not on the carnivore diet. It's okay. I eat vegetables.
And you also eat things that eat vegetables. So there you go.
I eat ruminants and I eat vegetables. I eat secondhand vegetables and firsthand vegetables.
Okay. I'll eat vegetables for fun, for entertainment purposes. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Okay. Well, have a great night, everybody. Bye.